It is day 2 of VPR's Piano Rewiring project. I'm Cheryl Willoughby in the VPR Performance Studio with Allan Day, piano technician. And Allan, before we get started on today's work, I wanted to ask you a question about something we learned yesterday when we were looking at the pins that you removed. These are the tuning pins that go into the pin block, yes, and the bushings that you are working on today. We'll get to that in a minute. But what we learned yesterday, if you look at the ones I have in my hand right here, we have a number of tuning pins that were removed. And what we learned is that some of them are actually warped. You can see that it's not straight like it needs to be.
Right.
So I'm curious, what causes a tuning pin to warp, for one thing, and also what we can do to help prevent that in the future as you begin to put new pins in?
Excellent question. The tuning pins that are used originally in this pin block were a particular size which, in my opinion, were a little too thin. And the reason that I feel that they were too thin is because they wound up bent. The tuning pin takes a tremendous amount of strain. When it's doing its job, it has to be as tight as possible, yet turnable by the tuner so that he or she can really lock in the precision tuning. But when the tuning pin has to bear the tension of the string, and as I said yesterday, in many pounds, like 150 to 250 pounds, there's a lot of strain that is put on that tuning pin, and it may want to just bend slightly. Well, when it does, that means it bends off center, and that when you try to tune it, it's either way above or way below, so you can't have a nice straight line, smooth curve of tuning. The new tuning pins that I'll be putting in here are much more stout. They're sturdier because they're bigger in dimension.
Are they made of a different material?
No, but the ones that I'm getting are made from German steel rather than Japanese steel, and I think it makes a difference.
Okay.
So this has been, probably this is the most egregious I've seen of bent tuning pins in a grand piano, but I've seen plenty of them in other older pianos where the tuning pins are thin in diameter.
So we're talking tuning pins that are made of Japanese steel, probably original with this piano, which is 40 years old.
Right.
And you're replacing them with something that's going to be a lot stronger.
Yeah.
So the process of replacing them also entails removing the old bushings that hold the pins in the pin board, and that's what you're working on right now.
Right. The bushings, these old bushings here, really have gotten elliptical in shape and misshapen through the years of the tuning pins bending them out shape, and so they need to go and be replaced. Now, these bushings are just placed and force fit in, like you can see over here, Cheryl, the one that I have replaced already. That's a new one, and those are just force fit in place. They're not glued. So that makes it kind of a challenge of removing them and not going too far where you disturb the hole in the pin block. And so if I can give you a little demonstration here, this is a tricky operation. There we go. And it clings onto the end of my drill bit as it comes out of the hole, and I can extract it. Some of them just crumble. But I don't want to go down too far because the hole that's down there is the one that supports the pin. The tuning pin bushing really just lines the hole and acts as a little fulcrum for the tuning pin.
What are the bushings made of?
Maple. And I have bags of new ones over here.
So those are actually wood.
Yep.
Ah, I see. Okay. And it's like a little cuff that fits in there to hold the tuning pin.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So what does today's project look like? You're going to be removing the rest of the bushings that hold the tuning pins and replacing them. And what else are you doing today?
I'm going to refelt all of the old, replace all of the old felt. Now these are the patterns from the old felt, and they go in here and they form a kind of a cushion or a bearing for the strings to go over. Strings have to have a certain amount of friction as they go into the speaking length. Between the tuning pin and the speaking length, a little bit of friction so that you have control over how well the strings stay put.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks, and we'll check in a little bit later today and see how things are coming.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.